Hello, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about kind of the elephant in the room of tattooing, which would be why are tattoos so expensive? Um, Also, don't look too closely at your camera because my eyes are crazy. I'm allergic to this planet. So we're both just going to struggle through this video. Um, Back on track. So, why are tattoos so expensive? One thing that I do want to establish before we get started would be when I say the artist and the shop. So the shop means um, the owner or owners of the shop, whoever has the business license for that establishment. And then the artist is hired individually. So we are like independent contractors. We would be like 1099 workers. So we work for the shop, but there's also, especially tax wise, a separation there. So when you go in and get tattooed and you pay like $200 for your tattoo, that $200 does not go directly to the artist. I mean, it might for like a few minutes, and then it's going a bunch of other places. So I want to cover where all that goes in this video. Um, Number one would be your rent or your payment to the shop. So that can be done a few different ways, and it could be done by percentage. So I have seen 50 to 60% go to the artist, and then the rest go to the shop. Or that artist could be paying like a weekly rent. It's usually weekly. It could be monthly, but generally weekly. For my area, the lowest rent that I've ever seen for an artist would be probably about $400 per week. So that's your number one. You want to make sure that when you're scheduling and you're figuring out your pricing, excuse me, that you want to be able to pay yourself a decent weekly wage, and you also want to be able to pay the shop. So one is rent, two is taxes. So if you are a W-2 worker, your employer will pay, I think it's half. I think W-2 workers, half of your taxes are your like Social Security and things like that are paid by your employer. So for 1099 workers, that's not the case. We need to pay all of that. Um, we are also, it's very likely that as an artist or a small business person, you're probably going to have an accountant or someone that is helping you with your taxes that you're paying. Um, so you want to factor that in. You are also going to have your tattoo license and some fees depending on your state associated with maintaining your license and um, being a 1099 worker. So your rent, number one, number two, your taxes and your fees and things like that. Um, Number three would be your credit card processing. If you're getting paid in cash for something, obviously that's not an issue. But if you're processing your credit cards, as an artist, I do pay somewhere near 3%, and that depends on how the transaction is going. It's a little bit more if I have to do it online or if I have to type in the card manually or whatever. But if I can swipe or do tap to pay, it comes out to roughly about 3%. Number four would be your advertising, which is much more expensive when you're just getting started because your name is not out there. You do have to spend a little money to make money. So your business cards, your social media ads, your your website, your domain, your hosting, all of those things. Um, your tattoo money is a part of that going to be going to your advertising. Number five would be your lack of benefits. So for small businesses, um, you are not really given any sick time or vacation time or short term or anything like that. So you do want to factor in when you have money coming in from your tattoos, allotting some of that for a lack of benefits. As a 1099 worker, you're not eligible for unemployment. So I think they made an exception for that during the pandemic, but I'm pretty sure that has ended. So if anything happens to you, you probably are not going to have health insurance through your employer, your tattoo shop. They're not going to be able to do that. So you want to factor in Um, the cost of your medical expenses, but also your time off. If we are not tattooing, we are not getting paid. Um, if someone no shows or calls in or whatever, reschedules their appointment and we cannot fill that space, we don't get paid. We only get paid what you give us, and that's it. So if we are sick or hurt or whatever, there's nothing. So that does have to be thought about in advance. You want to have a little savings, a little sick time money, surgery money, things like that. Also, if you want to take a vacation, that you need to pay for your time away. Um, Retirement. Uh, Small shops cannot afford to contribute to retirements. That's all on the artist. So you need to be thinking about your own retirement and putting back for that. Um, Also, this may not be every artist, but a lot of them that I know, to keep your skills sharp and things like that, you want to probably be painting, coloring, um, doing art studies, things like that. Um, so you're going to be spending a decent amount of money on art supplies, and those are not cheap. So your paints, your pencils, pens, microns, all that. And there is a degree of that you'll use during tattooing, so like your Sharpies and things. Um, and then last but not least, because it's probably the biggest chunk, would be your supplies. The shop does provide usually disposables like paper towels, cups, ink caps, some things of that nature. But the pricier items and the items that would be really more up to the artist's preference, like needles, your brand of ink, your gloves, your furniture, um, those are usually things that the artist is paying for. So, some cleaning supplies. Generally, the shop will cover some of those, but you might have some additional expenses there. Paper, your printer, your printer ink. I feel like I could just buy a new printer every time that I have to purchase the ink. It's so expensive. So when I get supplies, and this really varies per artist, how much you like to keep on hand, the type of materials you like, the amount that you do per order, whatever. I usually do every 6 to 8 weeks. And depending on what I'm out of and what I need to reorder, that could be anywhere from $400 to 1,000 or more. Um, and so when we say business expenses, we do get to write those off, but when I started, I was like, oh, am I going to get like a check back for all of these business expenses? Because I was 20 and I didn't know anything. Um, but all that does when you log your business expense, and it is important, but it's not as big of a help as I thought it would be. That only lowers your taxable income. So that amount of all your expenses brings you down so that they're just nice enough to not tax you um, on a little bit more. Um, so that's everything that I could think of as to um, what we want to factor in when we come up with tattoo prices. And it's really hard to say for each artist what you would end up with. Um, like what percentage, say that there's $100 tattoo, like what you would end up with in your pocket at the end of the day. It really, depending on your expenses and things like that. I would say less than 40%. For some people, it might be even lower than that. Um, but this is not to complain. This is to let you guys know that we don't make an extravagant amount of money unless you're one of the famous Instagram tattooers or whatever. I don't know what they make. I'm not one of them. But you can make a decent living at tattooing, but we are not just rolling in all these hundreds of dollars every single day that it kind of looks like on the surface. So that is my take on why tattoos are so expensive. Next week's video, I want to talk about why it is worth it. Um, why why you maybe would want to shell out this money and go through this experience and have tattoos. So if you liked this video, come back next week for part number 2. Thanks for watching. Bye.